Welcome back to another episode of Trench Talk. It's been a while, and it has definitely nothing to do with Christian and I's personal schedules, which is why we have to delay this until Wednesday. There's definitely nothing going on there. But
Yeah.
welcome back. Logan Shanks here with Christian Royston, another episode of Trench Talk. Won't be going beat for beat here on every single game, but we'll hit the quick headlines. And especially, we felt like we needed to do this on a Wednesday. And it almost actually helps us that we didn't do it yesterday because of all the news that dropped yesterday.
Yeah, and even this morning as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, should we go for the big one, the big headline of the week so far?
Cast your line and get your fish. Get your fish.
Robert Saleh.
He's done. He done. We haven't really talked too much personally on this. And yes, I did actually have to Google his name to make sure I spelled that right. It sounds like, it sounds just how it's spelled, but just have to make sure with Robert. But Jets start out 2-3. They're coming off a loss in London. I didn't get to watch a lot of that game. Probably only really the second half. We'll probably talk a little bit more about that. But do you think this is the right call?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've been talking about this like with my roommates, just they're Vikings fans, so we watched that game, 8 a.m., kind of a rough wake up. But
especially after a long day of college football where it was it seemed like Iowa State was the only team that wasn't going to get upset on Saturday, but regardless.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think Ohio State was pretty safe.
Well, any team that plays Iowa is going to be safe from now on, but anyways.
No, the whole game we were like, they were saying at what point do they move on from Robert Saleh? They're like, should Robert Saleh be fired? And I'm like, I'm over here defending him. I'm saying he's not a bad he's a really good defensive coach. I mean, he was a great defensive coordinator for the 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think somebody's going to pick him up pretty quick, Mm-hmm. I haven't looked at the defensive numbers, but whatever team is kind of struggling a bit, I mean, why not go out and just get Robert Saleh? He's a great defensive mind, but the Jets aren't like a franchise that can thrive like that. Especially you bring in Aaron Rodgers, you bring in all these offensive weapons, but you still don't have play calling. It's like,
right.
At some point, Rodgers is going to get fed up and be like, I mean, who do you trust? Your 4-time MVP quarterback who's won a Super Bowl before, or Robert Saleh, who's been coaching the team kind of into the dirt for the last couple of years?
With Rodgers coming in, and really, I don't think the offense has looked too much different with him, playing these last 5 games than when Robert Saleh has had to work with Zach Wilson for the last 3 years. I want you to take a crack at, I don't know if you've already seen it, but his final record with the Jets through three seasons and 5 games.
Oh, boy. I mean, he's probably won like 10 games.
Okay, well, you're underestimating him quite a bit, but
that's right. They pulled off some like kind of random wins with Zach Wilson.
It's under 500, but yeah.
I don't know. I'd probably say like 16 wins max.
20-36. You are right. They did pull out some random wins with Zach Wilson because there were back-to-back years before this year where they went 7-10. So not great, but those 10 losses definitely don't sit well. And apparently the Jets thought it was a good idea that this is the right decision to after their international game to cut ties with them. I'm hearing everything you're saying. Great defensive head coach, or a great defensive minded coach. He's going to go somewhere for sure. Many people are saying, why not go back to the Niners right now with the defense that is struggling? But I think, he probably takes at least a year, the rest of the year off. But
Yeah.
he'll land on his feet somewhere. It just feels like a really odd decision to make right now.
Yeah. It's kind of there's like never any like positions open mid-season for like coordinators. It feels like
Mm-hmm.
tough spot for him to be in, but I mean, yeah, like we've seen teams do this in the past. I think what was it? Matt Rule was the last one to be fired mid-season or after like five
After that's what I
games
was hearing after 5 games. Yeah.
with his run on the Panthers. I don't think the Jets looked nearly as bad as that Panthers team.
No.
I honestly think they could have rode with him probably through the rest of the season. So it's definitely not a performance issue.
I
It
mean,
has to just be something with like in the front office. Maybe they don't like the decisions he's making. Maybe Rodgers. I mean, they said that Rodgers didn't have any say in it, but I assume he probably had some say in it.
yeah. And he'll be on Pat McAfee today, which I'm not the world's biggest Pat McAfee fan, but I'll probably tune in to see what he says if he
Mm-hmm.
says anything.
He probably
Um,
won't.
no. So we'll see what happens there. But I mean, like I said, it just feels like an odd decision to make right now because of, I mean, their defense has been one of the best in the league the last 3, 4, ever since he's really been there. I think I looked at his stats outside of the first year he was there. They've been pretty close to the top 10 and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the offense just doesn't look any different than if Zach Wilson and Aaron Rodgers were there. I think it was last year. I think the stat was last year through 5 games they scored 93 points, and they've scored 93 points through 5 games this year.
Yeah, and I mean it has to be like the glaring issue. I mean, you bring Aaron Rodgers in, he actually plays snaps, and I mean, going into last year, we thought it was like a Super Bowl contending team. This year, they don't look like they can do anything.
Yeah, and apparently a lot of people were picking them to win the division going into this year.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we would have done division winners like in the preseason, because I don't think I would have picked them. I think I would have probably heavily gone in on either the Bills or the Dolphins. Now that's that's in hindsight. But where can they even go now? I mean, you fired your head coach through 5 games. You're sitting at 2-3. Can this team still even make the playoffs? I just don't. I don't. The from what the writing is saying right now, firing your head coach through 5 weeks, I don't think it sets the tone for making the playoffs this year, especially with how tough the AFC East is.
Well, I feel like it's never a good idea. Like teams that fire their coach mid-season don't tend to go on to win it all. I
Yeah.
mean, that's never happened before. I mean, it almost feels like they're trying to rebuild, but then where does that leave Aaron Rodgers? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's old, only getting older.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really move on from him
Mm-hmm.
mid-season as well. So it's like, yeah,
So yeah, that brings the question for in the off season. I was thinking about this yesterday. You always go into the off season where it's like, all right, there's usually about 5 to 6 teams, maybe a little bit more, that are looking for new head coaches, because there is usually a handful that fire their head coaches at the end of the year.
mm-hmm.
The Jets have already started their clock. Now they're going to be a team looking for a new head coach in the offseason. Who knows who it's going to be? People are pointing at Mike Vrabel, some other notable guys that could be there. I would probably say that what's going to happen here is they probably find an OC or a DC from another squad and poach them.
Yeah, that tends to be how it works out.
Maybe like a Ben Johnson from the Lions. But then I don't even know, because now you have all these. You've spent a lot of first round picks on this defense, and now you don't want to waste them. And if you upgrade, or you hire a guy like Ben Johnson, that's going to focus on the offense. That'll be nice for Rodgers, but what if he's having to come back from his team giving up now 20, 25 points a game?
Yeah, I mean, Jets are just kind of in a tough spot no matter what they do. I mean, you can try to satisfy one side of the ball. Obviously, that didn't work with the defense, and now they're probably going to try to look for something more offensive. But then their defense is going to struggle. Yeah, It's the organization. I mean, they haven't been good in forever, and I think it's kind of a big ask to think that one piece is going to finish the puzzle for them.
Yeah, well, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't help build the puzzle when you take another piece out, which seemed to be working. And now they have as their interim head coach, their defensive coordinator, I want to say. So it seems like, yeah, they're still sticking with that defensive minded, unit that they're going to move forward with. But still, I just don't know how much better it can be for the Jets. I think they've kind of dug their own grave at this point. If there was a ticket for them to not make the playoffs, I'm going all in on that now.
That's true. Free money.
So, and this begs another case because going into this week, a lot of people thought that, with the Aaron Rodgers connection, maybe they can turn things around. The offense would at least get a little bit better if Davante Adams would go to the Jets and reconnect with Aaron Rodgers. But now this changes. I mean, if you're Davante Adams, you don't want to go there. They don't have a head coach.
Yeah, I mean that it's completely off the table now.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't even know where this puts Adams. I mean, beforehand we were thinking probably Jets, Ravens, Saints.
Yeah, Jets and the Saints were pretty much the two biggest buyers. A lot of people were just looking at the Jets, but now it feels like if you're Davante Adams, you're kind of signing yourself up for. I mean, what's a better situation? Staying on the Raiders, who are benching quarterbacks now, or going to the Jets, where they're not going to win the division, and they just fired their head coach.
Yeah. So I mean, this begs the question now: does he just move over to the NFC, move back to the NFC, pair up with his old teammate Derek Carr?
Well, now Derek Carr's now out for a couple weeks, and they're I think honestly what's now turning out to be a competitive NFC South. I don't think anyone's really surprised by that, considering they pick up Kirk Cousins. It's going to be a little bit more competitive of a division, but now with Derek Carr out, where's he going to go? I mean, I'm just surprised. And you even mentioned that he's still dealing with an injury, so that also has to waver on this.
Yeah, he's missed a few weeks with the hamstring thing. Obviously, he's not on IR, so it's probably not a big thing. It could honestly be just an excuse for him not to play, making a business decision, some may say.
Yeah.
But I've also seen him. I mean, did you see him post on Instagram with Edgar Allan Poe?
I did not.
Yeah, cryptic Instagram story post. It was just a photo of Edgar Allan Poe immediately after he announced he wanted to trade.
Who wrote The Raven?
Yeah, that's why he's from Baltimore.
Okay,
that's why the team's called.
It's over now.
The Ravens.
It's over.
Yeah.
Wait.
But then.
Oh, Edgar Allan Poe is from. Okay, I thought you meant Davante Adams was from Baltimore.
Oh no.
I was like,
I mean, we can look it up.
It's probably not. He was. Give me California.
That's what I was thinking. Cal dude.
He is from California. There we go. Okay, sidetracked. But shout out to Edgar Allan Poe. But maybe the Ravens. They're definitely in the best situation with where. You could say maybe go back to the Packers. Maybe. I don't know. It'd be interesting. I'm still the jury for. I'm still kind of questioning the Packers and what they're going to be able to do. They've put together some nice wins for sure, but it feels like if he goes to the Ravens, that offense is going to be unstoppable at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Ravens, you should go all in to get him. I mean, that's like the last piece you need is a star receiver. You have everything else.
And even if it doesn't work out this year, they still have him on contract for next year, and they still have Derrick Henry. They just signed Derrick Henry to, I believe, a 3-year deal, so he's going to be on contract for next year. Lamar signed. So I
Yeah, it
think
feels
it's
like they want to win now. I mean,
mm-hmm.
this is the guy.
And we'll get to their game because that now I'm actually interested in the Ravens now. They almost blew it against the Cowboys. They were close with the Chiefs, but I never really thought they were going to win. But now with the way they played the Bengals, I'm all in on them. But regardless of that, I'm
Although I have yet to see them perform in the playoffs,
that's true.
and
That
that's
is
kind
true.
of, I mean, playoff Lamar is not great.
Yep. I believe he has the same amount of playoff wins as Baker Mayfield. So just saying. Actually, yes, I do. I believe they do have the same, pretty much pretty close playoff record. Regardless of that, um, I think Adams to the Ravens would probably be the most fun. Makes the most sense. I don't really
Mm-hmm.
want to see him get dumped off to a non-contender, but it seems like that's probably not going to happen. Usually with these mid-season trades, it's not usually star players getting dumped off to crappy teams.
Yeah, they want to move to a team that they can win on.
Yeah, but that's usually because they have a no trade clause, which I don't believe is the case. I believe the Raiders can send they if they want to be, if they want there to be some bad blood there, they can send them pretty much where else. They can trade him to the Panthers if they want to.
Not the Panthers. They might be contenders.
Oh God.
No, I'm
Anyway,
just kidding.
I keep checking my phone because I want to have some breaking news on here in case anything drops this week, but I doubt it.
I mean, there's been a lot of news here recently, but
We can
yeah.
move into I mentioned that Derek Carr is probably going to be out for a couple weeks. He has, I believe, it's an oblique injury suffered in Monday Night Football. Talking about Spencer Rattler maybe starting for the Saints, which I saw on Twitter. People are like, this would be the weirdest way to have two former Oklahoma quarterbacks play each other because the Bucks play the Saints this week.
I guess that's one way of looking at it.
Yeah. So,
But yeah, no, I saw that he was like mentioned as probably. I think they're leaning towards him
yeah.
because
I mean,
he surprised in the preseason.
mm-hmm. I think probably a better option than Jake Hayner. So,
Yeah, so I mean, this could be the year of the rookie quarterbacks. I mean, Bo Nix is heating up. Caleb Williams is starting to actually look good.
and the thing is that don't be surprised if Spencer Rattler plays well because the Bucks defense is still down some pieces. Vita Vea is still
Mm-hmm.
kind of banged up. I want to say there's other guys in their D line banged up. Antoine Winfield Jr. is still not back, so don't be surprised. I'm not saying they're winning. Don't buy that ticket, but don't be surprised if maybe Spencer Rattler plays well.
Yeah, and then another guy, who's another rookie who's going to start this week.
Boop. There we go.
Oh wow,
Breaking.
Drake May.
Yeah.
Which
Maybe he'll be okay.
okay, yeah. But let me get on my soapbox here because I honestly think I've been waiting for this.
Well, let me get in here real quick. I think it's still not a great decision because he's probably going to get. I mean, that team's not going to change that much. I think they have a better chance to win with Drake May, but the offensive line is still not great. Now you can stand.
All right. No, I think Drake May is honestly. I think they needed to do this sooner. I don't think Jacoby Brissett was ever going to help them win games, to be honest. I think Jacoby Brissett's a good backup when you need him, but he can't be a starter at this point. And I think Drake May, what he showed in the preseason, was good enough to warrant him being on the field. So I think we could see the Patriots maybe turn around a bit. He'll probably have a learning curve. I mean, we saw all the other rookie quarterbacks have that as well.
And you could argue now all the rookie quarterbacks are playing well. I know, and Caleb Williams probably coming off two of his best games as a pro. I know this last week was against the Panthers, but Jaden Daniels has been a star since his first game, and Bo Nix has been playing well since that Buccaneers game.
Hmm. So I mean, it seems like rookie quarterbacks are starting to heat up here, and I mean, give Drake May a couple weeks. I think he could be another rookie quarterback that kind of gets his name in there.
Now, I did say Bo Nix has been playing well. I do remember that he did have that terrible game against the Jets, but I'm saying he's looking better in the last couple weeks. Same thing with Caleb Williams. I do want to look at the Patriots' schedule. I believe they're playing the Texans this week, so that it's not a great case, honestly. If you would have made the switch and want him to have some confidence, it probably would have been a good idea for him to play the Dolphins this week. Maybe
This will
they
be a
actually have.
tester.
Maybe they or last week they would have had a little bit more of a chance to win. But these next 3 weeks, he's got at home against the Texans and the Jags and the Jets. So the Foxborough is going to get a good taste of what they got in their new quarterback. In that stretch, maybe he doesn't win. Maybe he doesn't win any of those games. Maybe the Jets game will be competitive. But I mean, it's exciting to see what he's going to look like. I mean, they
Hmm.
spent I believe it was 10th overall pick on him for a reason. And, with what you were saying, I don't think they ever thought Jacoby Brissett was going to be the answer, but maybe just obviously just waiting a little bit to see before they put Drake May in there, which arguably they should have just been like all the other teams that drafted a rookie quarterback in the first round and just what should have started him day one.
Yeah, I mean, you drop a couple games early on. I mean, I was looking back. Bo Nix started 0-2, but since he's been 3-0. I mean, Jaden Daniels, I think, is 3-0 in his last three.
Caleb Williams, haven't the Bears won 2 games in a row now?
Yeah, I think he's like 2-1 or something in his last three.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean,
So.
you go through some growing pains, but yeah, afterwards, I think the teams actually become competitive.
Mm-hmm. So, right decision.
Yeah.
Um, you know, we'll see what Drake May looks like. Obviously, just a bit better of a decision to have him there. See what you can get out of him. The AFC East probably looking like it's still going to be the Bills to lose at this point, especially with that Tua injury. But maybe the Pats can make stuff competitive, sitting at 1-4 right now. Probably not. That's
Probably
hopeful.
not.
That's a little bit too optimistic. But speaking of the Texans, you kind of wanted to talk about some news that dropped today about arguably their number one wide receiver.
Yeah, Nico Collins got placed on IR. I believe it's a hamstring thing. But yeah, I mean, he was leading the league in receiving yards. I think he was on pace to maybe push Calvin Johnson's record.
Okay, well, it's not gonna.
Technically on
Okay,
pace.
okay. Yeah, it's gonna be a big loss, but this is why you sign, or was it a sign? This is why you get Stephon Diggs in the offseason.
Hmm. Plus, I think we'll probably be seeing more of Tank Dell as well. So
And maybe a little bit more of Xavier Hutchinson.
that's true. Iowa State
So,
guy.
the Texans they improved after dropping that game to the Vikings a couple weeks ago. They get that win against the Bills, who I think really it was more of a defensive win for the Texans, but their offense is still one of the best in the league. And you're just hoping that this thing with Nico Collins doesn't last too long.
Yeah, because I mean he's really come along as like one of the
Mm-hmm.
better receivers in the league. So it just kind
Mm-hmm.
of sucked to see him. I mean, miss 4 games minimum.
Yeah. If it is just 4 games, they do kind of have a favorable schedule at this point. Patriots, Packers, Colts, Jets. I see them walking out of this at least at 2-2, maybe even 3-1. Possibly, you could even argue that they're going to be favored in each of those games and go 4-0. So,
Hmm.
um, I think this is a bit of a loss, and I was thinking about it when we were getting ready for this show. Is like this is when you kind of get into the point of the season where you're going to get some injuries. Some guys are going to be more banged up than others. but it's the best teams that are going to come out of this and still pull out some wins, regardless of having some of their best guys out.
Yeah, every team gets banged up. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can say that. I mean, sure, when it comes to like the playoffs and like the Super Bowl, it's usually the healthiest team ends up being the team that comes out on top. We saw that happen
Mm-hmm.
with the Chiefs. We saw that happen with Tom Brady's Bucks. Um, we probably saw that happen with the Rams when they won. Uh,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that it when it comes like time, like grind time, that's when like the healthier team actually matters a lot. But
Mm-hmm.
you should be able to win regular season games even with some injuries. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
unless you're, what's happening with the 49ers and the Rams, where you're down like 8 to 9 of your starters, it's kind of hard to win in those cases, or if you lose your starting quarterback. But I mean, the Texans have so many weapons on offense.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, at some point, they're going to get Joe Mixon back. And then
Yeah.
that'll add to their already deep receiver room.
Yeah. So, I mean, in the injuries, it seemed like they're piling up. You mentioned Joe Mixon, which please come back. I need you on my fantasy team. But the Texans are one of those teams, now that you think about it, that so with being in the AFC South, we know how the Jags are doing. The Colts are fine. The Titans are not great. They're probably just as on par with the Jags. But if you look at a team like the Texans right now, in their scenario, they're 4-1. So realistically, and like I was mentioning, a not really that competitive AFC South. Realistically, Texans, you probably only have to win 6 or 7 more games to win that division over the course of your next 12. So,
You have to win half of them. That's like not bad.
yeah.
I mean, because you don't, I think a lot of like fans of these teams think that, oh, we need to be at like 12 wins or we need to be at 13 wins. You're not beating
Now,
the rest of the league. You need to get to the playoffs. You need to beat
yeah.
the rest of your division.
Yeah, like in the case of like the Cowboys, they need to, if they want to win this division with how competitive that really all the teams are starting to be. I think every team in the AFC in the NFC East won this week. Who'd the Eagles play? Were they might have been off, but like the Commanders and the Giants both won this week. The Cowboys are in a division where they need to win at least like 11 or 12 games. The Texans, you're probably on, like, if you really have to, and they're going to go over this mark, they really only realistically have to win like 10 or 11 games to win that division.
Yeah. I mean, there's some divisions that are going to eat up a lot of those wild card spots.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Texans probably have to win their division, but whereas some teams you can get in with like a 9-win, probably not 9, but like 10 or 11 wins.
Yeah.
Just taking up one of those wild card spots.
Yeah, like if you look at the NFC North, like the Steelers at this rate, maybe they're looking at a wild card spot. If the Bengals can put something together, which I don't know if they can, but like the Ravens pretty much have that locked up. Look at the AFC East. The Bills are probably still going to win it. Maybe the Dolphins can make a push if they get Tua back. I doubt it, but there are some teams that are pretty, even with some losses, whether it be on the schedule or on the roster, they're still sitting pretty right now.
Yeah, I'm not worried about them at all.
Mm-hmm.
CJ Stroud can kind of do what he can with what he has.
Yeah.
I mean, he's proven to be an elite quarterback at this point. I feel like that's not crazy to say. So, elite quarterbacks, they can move the ball.
Yeah. Texans are going to be all right. It sucks to lose Nico Collins, but you're just glad that it's not more than 4, probably not going to be more than 4 weeks with a hamstring.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, you mentioned the AFC North.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about competitive divisions.
What a game. I think what you're hinting at is
the battle for the North.
Yeah, I think what you're hinting at here is the the best and worst performances here. I've got the best so far, and we can hit, the AFC North, and I'll go first to kind of give the viewers something exciting to talk about now, and then you can hit us with your Browns. But yeah, the Bengals and the Ravens dueled it out on Sunday. I wasn't able to really watch it too much, but I was box score watching. Game goes into overtime. Lamar ends with, I want to say, 4 total touchdowns. If not, then it's just he had the 3 passing touchdowns, and 4 passing touchdowns, and Joe Burrow with 5 touchdowns in a loss, 41-38. Ravens take it. I mean, if you were a guy that was waiting for the offenses to kind of show out, I think this is really the week that we saw the offenses are now kind of in a groove for all teams, especially these 2.
Yeah, and honestly, you kind of hate it for Joe Burrow because could you ask for a better game? I mean, 400 yards and 5 touchdowns,
mm-hmm.
and you're throwing almost 80% completion.
Yeah, even if you look at like Jamar Chase, who had almost 200 yards, 10 catches, 2 touchdowns,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you saw. Did you see any there's a post game interview, like in the locker room with Jamar, and he was just like, "What'd you see on that one interception from Burrow or something?" Because I think that was could have been a decider in this game. I mean, this game was close enough.
Yeah, I think that interception came in overtime. So
yeah, and yeah, Jamar's just like, yeah, I ran a shitty route, and yeah, he gave up that pick because of me. So I need to play better. I'm like, you need to play better. You had 200 yards and 2 touchdowns.
At least he's kind of taking some accountability. It could have been easy for him as a receiver to just be like, well, I'm always open. But
I mean, it seemed like he was.
So that interception actually came in the 4th quarter when there was 3 minutes left, and then that led to
the
game tying field goal. Also, we have a quote here from Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show.
Oh.
I love Coach Saleh. We have a very solid relationship. He was a big reason why I came to the Jets. So,
yeah, with the picture of I'll show the
pushing away. Not much of a hugger apparently, but regardless of that,
seems like PR speak to me. But
yeah, but we knew that was gonna happen.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to read in between the lines there.
Yeah. Anyway, Lamar has played really solid this year. I honestly, had to look at his numbers: 9 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, 1,200 passing yards. This has to be probably one of the best starts as a passer that Lamar's had in his career. And he has 2 rushing touchdowns, so 11 total touchdowns, and it's 3 total turnovers. So kind of crazy. Ravens improved to 3-2, so it's looking like this is the Ravens division to lose now.
Yeah, which is wild because I think obviously going into week 18 without a win, and we're like, okay, are the Ravens even good right now? And then, yeah, I mean, they turned it on. I think they're 3-0 since.
And now the Bengals sit at 1-4.
Yeah, although 1-1 in the last 2 weeks of competitive games. I think Burrow put it really well in the post game. He said, I mean, they asked him if they were a championship team, which is kind of a crazy question to me. But
this is why we should be there.
Yeah, and he was like, "No, we're not a championship team right now. Like, we're not playing at that level.
Okay,
as a team, we're just not there." I'm like, it's good that he recognizes that, and I mean, hopefully they can figure it out here.
Aaron Rodgers on people saying he was the reason the the reason. Okay, well, Ari Mirov just complete. Sorry, buddy. I love you, but you kind of screwed up this tweet. Aaron Rodgers on people saying he was the reason Aaron Rodgers was fired. I resent any of those accusations because they're patently, I want to say. I've never seen that word, but they're false, is what he's saying.
Patently false.
Patently false. There we go. Nice wisdom there. But there we go. Corrected himself on the tweet. Love you, Ari Mirov, but you did kind of screw up on that. Who hasn't messed up a tweet, though? Who hasn't? I mean,
me. No, I'm just kidding.
No. But Bengals have to play the Giants next week. If you lose this game and you drop to 1-5, are we looking at Zach Taylor, the next one to get fired, the next head coach to get fired?
Zach Taylor. Huh. I mean, I guess I don't think they'll make a change mid-season.
Okay.
But yeah, you have to start winning games. I honestly think they're right there, though. It's not like they're losing. I mean, it's not like they're not in these games. I mean, what? You lose to the Patriots by 6. Weird start to the season. You lose to the Chiefs by 1, pretty much 1 defensive pass interference.
Mm-hmm.
You lose to Commanders by 5, which, I mean, they were right there. They were about to put together a comeback. And then you lose to the Ravens in overtime off of a field goal because you made one tiny slip up.
So, and you look at the next 4 games, they've got Giants, Browns, Eagles, Raiders. They're probably going to be favored in 3 to almost all 4 of those games.
Mm-hmm.
So, with 2 of them, 2 on the road, 2 at home. If they can, start stringing together some wins, again, a lot of people are going to think that they're 1-4, maybe the postseason's over for them. I think they're one of those teams where they've shown their ability to kind of string together some wins, especially with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase healthy.
Yeah.
But I feel like at this rate, you cannot drop to 1-5. Yeah, that seems like almost, especially with the AFC North, almost like you can't come back from that.
Yeah, I don't think they need to win the North either. I think if they can get to like 10 wins, I think the AFC at this point is, honestly, the AFC has been loaded in like the past probably 5 years or so. I think this year we're seeing the NFC make a resurgence.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they can make the playoffs on 10 wins, which means you only need 9 of these last 12. And I mean, you talk about they play the Browns twice. They play the Giants. They play the Raiders. They play the Chargers. They play the Titans, the Broncos. I mean,
very winnable games here. Yeah, I think those are all very winnable games. And it does seem like now Joe Burrow has kind of gotten going after, kind of a slow start. And really, if we want to look at it, he didn't play that terrible in their first couple games. They were just losing, and he wasn't really doing much. But now, passing game looks a lot better. I just had to shout out this, probably the game of the year so far, with both Lamar and Burrow, combining for 9 passing touchdowns and making the AFC North, kind of making up for some other teams in the AFC North.
Like what? Like what teams?
Well, I mean, the Steelers also lost this week. They lost to my Cowboys on a game, on a touchdown from Jalen Tolbert, a game-winning touchdown drive from Dak Prescott in Pittsburgh after a long delay. That was awesome to watch. Usually we don't win those games, but it's okay. But I think there's one other team in the AFC North that maybe wasn't, maybe they're not off to that great of a start.
Well, it's got to be the Ravens, huh?
No, I just talked about the Ravens. They're 3-2. They're doing all right. They're 3-2. They're doing all right. Is there any other team in the AFC North that maybe you'd want to talk about a little bit?
I'm ready to sign the petition. I'm ready to get Deshaun out of Cleveland.
I thought I was going to have to make a rule that you couldn't put Deshaun on your worst performances anymore. But, I mean,
every week it seems like he can't get lower, and then he does. So
he threw a touchdown this week.
He did, yeah, while completing 50% of his passes.
That touchdown
100
came.
games.
That touchdown came when they were down 34-6 too.
Yeah, in the fourth quarter when it's garbage time. I mean, they're not going to win games with him throwing the ball. I think that's just clear. And Stefanski is being kind of stubborn. I don't know if you saw the post game. He's like,
Deshaun's our quarterback.
yeah, Deshaun's our quarterback. I'm the problem. It's a coaching issue, not a quarterback issue. I'm like, no. I'm pretty sure every Cleveland fan wants Jameis Winston to start at this point. Even if we lose every other game this season with Jameis Winston at the helm, I'd rather support a guy who's just like a meme, who's kind of funny, as opposed to just watching like the worst quarterback in the league just play football every Sunday. Because I mean, at this point, I kind of want to look up Deshaun Watson's stats.
Oh, I got him right here. What do you want?
Do you have where he's ranked in?
Well, passing yards, he's 26th with 852.
26. Love that.
QBR is at 21, 31st in the league.
Yeah, 21 QBR, which is probably the worst I've ever seen, to be honest.
Let's see here. His QBR, it's actually kind of funny. I saw a TikTok that his QBR this past week was 8.5, and that is not the lowest it's been this year.
Yeah, no, I think it was like week 1.
Week 1, he had an 8.3. 8.3 against the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, he just doesn't. I don't even know who he is anymore. I think somebody's taken over his body. Like this isn't the Texans' Deshaun Watson. I mean, that's clear. Like occasionally we get glimpses when he's scrambling about. I'm like, oh my god, Deshaun's back. But then he reverts and he, throws. His misses are so far off the mark that
that's my thing. Is
they
again
shouldn't count as pass attempts.
Like I said, I didn't have a ton of time to watch football this week, so I was stat watching the highlights on Twitter and whatnot. But I see that he is complete. So right now he's completed 60% of his passes on the year. This week against the Commanders, they lose 34-13. He completed 15 of his 28 attempts. I mean, I just want to see where his passes are going, and passes for 125 yards on 15 completions.
Yeah, and I mean, he passes a lot of short balls because he doesn't have an arm anymore, or his deep ball is so inaccurate. It's just like, why even let him throw the ball deep? Like at this point, they're like, hopefully we can survive until Nick Chubb is healthy again, and then I mean, at this point, the playoffs are out of the question.
Exactly. So now you even we both love Nick Chubb, but now you would even feel bad if he has to come back and be on this team that's still going to lose games regardless.
I don't want him starting this season because, I mean, if we get Nick Chubb injured again on a season that's already doomed, I mean, we're going to be in poverty for years to come. I mean, that just seems like the Browns cycle at this point.
Longest completion was for 19 yards to Amari Cooper. I'd venture that a lot of those were yak yards too. So, and I don't think a decision will be made. I think a lot of people are saying that if it was Kevin Stefanski's decision, he would have benched Deshaun by now. But I don't think it is. So,
yeah, I mean, if they want to win games, they would bench Deshaun. I mean, he is clearly the problem in Cleveland. I mean, I knew immediately when they picked him up from the trade that he wasn't going to be good. I mean, they've done better on offense without him than with him. Let that sink in.
Because you see what Joe Flacco could do last year.
And not even just Joe Flacco. I mean, they had probably 3 other players fill in. DTR was in there playing better than Deshaun.
There are some people saying that even if Jameis went DTR could even run the offense better than Deshaun. I don't know about that, but I would be interested to see what it would look like.
It would look better. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, I mean, he's on my worst performance again, just because. I mean, he's put the franchise back into the gutter. I thought we were finally getting out, but nope.
Well, I'll move on to my next best performance. I do want to shout out real quick. I'm gonna move away from quarterbacks here. Christian will have some more bad quarterback performances to talk about, but probably the only other one that I wanted to talk about was Kirk Cousins, who unfortunately upsets a great night from Baker in the first half, who threw 3 touchdowns, but um, Kirk Cousins ends up throwing for 500 yards. I think he's like the second or third Falcon to ever throw for 500 yards. You could probably venture to say that the other one was most likely Matt Ryan, but you get his official numbers up here. Kirk Cousins completed 42 of his 58 attempts, 509 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. Overall, like, wow, they beat the Bucks and Baker in overtime. I think great win for the Falcons, and Kirk finally,
Kirk of change.
yeah, he's new guy on a new team who we're kind of seeing with this with Rodgers is kind of still adjusting to what the offense is going to be. But Kirk Cousins, a great game from him. And real quick, I'll just hit one of my other best performances, which comes from Darnell Mooney, who had 105 receiving yards. Let me double check here. It is final numbers were 9 catches, 105 yards, and 2 touchdowns. A lot like DJ Moore for the Bears, who had the exact same numbers, I want to say. 5 catches, 105 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So both those guys, great performances, especially Kirk Cousins, looking great out there.
Yeah, I was looking at Matt Ryan. I mean, how many other people threw for how many other 500-yard games from the Falcons?
I think it was Kirk Cousins and like a couple other guys, like 2 or 3 other people.
Oh, yeah, because Matt Ryan did it in his MVP season.
That's what I would venture to think. So
does that mean Kirk Cousins is on pace?
No, I think Kirk Cousins. I think Falcons probably dropped their game when they played the Falcons, or when the Falcons played the Bucks in Tampa. They probably dropped that game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just a great game out of Kirk. A lot of fun to watch, really. So
yeah, I mean,
even when covering some high school volleyball, like I was doing. So
Darnell Mooney too.
Yeah, and then I think it was Cordero Hodge had the final. He had the walk-off touchdown.
Oh yeah, I mean, just overall great day for these guys, especially just in the air. I think I was looking at it, and yeah, not a lot of ground action there, but Mike Evans 2 touchdowns.
What are they going to do? What are the Falcons going to do with Bijan? Like, they have to use him. They have to find a way to use him.
I mean, they don't need to.
They're going to need to use him.
They have so many.
Kirk Cousins can't pass for 500 yards every week.
Wow, that would be pretty cool if he could. I mean, Drake London, this is the first time I'm seeing his stat line. 154.
I know,
12
right?
catches.
Yeah. They had that connection going. Kyle Pitts kind of was used a little bit. So
Ray McLeod caught 6 balls.
Ray McLeod, just crazy how he's actually being used now on the Falcons. But I'm excited to see what the Falcons do now. They, started off, I want to say 2-2. Now they improved to 3-2. So.
Yep, that is how wins work. Whenever you win a game,
okay,
go from 2-2 to 3-2.
Well, I think they're actually, maybe they were pretty close in that Chiefs game too. So, they're a final drive away from being 4-1.
Yeah, and going into the year, I had them as like a contender, honestly, because they have the talent. They were really just a quarterback away.
Yeah.
If you have a quarterback that can throw for 500 yards, I mean, there you go.
Yeah, but that's hitting on one of my best performances. Hopefully you get to see Kirk Cousins still balling out, especially with, Darnell Mooney, money with 2 O's. Who do you want to hit on next? Because you have
you mentioned Aaron Rodgers. You talk about old quarterbacks on new teams, and I don't think it was. I mean, Aaron Rodgers threw 3 picks.
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was
One of them a pick six, which he never throws. I think that's
the biggest one was he had a game-winning drive, which is like his specialty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was watching the game with Vikings fans. They saw the ball go into Aaron Rodgers' hands for one final drive, like there at the end, and I was like, "Oh God, he's about to put together a game-winning drive. Vibes are going to be an all-time low."
Yeah, you don't want this.
I mean, 7 points would have beat the Vikings by 1,
right?
And then he throws a pick.
To Stephon Gilmore of all people.
Who? Stephon Gilmore should be on my worst performances list. I'm sorry, Stephon, but you are.
He got the game-sealing interception.
Yeah, he also probably gave up 17 points to the Jets. I mean, him on Garrett Wilson was such an abysmal matchup. I think Garrett Wilson was open 95% of his routes.
I want to say he got close to 20 targets, Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, 13 catches. He had to have been at 20 because
Alan Lazard, another Iowa State guy, got involved. That too. But keep talking about, your Jets. 22 targets to be exact.
22. Yeah, because, Aaron Rodgers was just looking at Stephon Gilmore, who was like 8 yards off the ball on every single play. And he's like, well, I'm just going to throw it over that way. But no. Aaron Rodgers attempts 54 passes, 240 yards. That's kind of abysmal. But I think the biggest thing is just the Jets. The Jets is on my worst performances just because as a team, they're not really clicking. It's like, obviously this is the reason why Robert Saleh got fired, but it's like the passing game works for a little bit, and then miscommunication with the receivers, Aaron Rodgers throws a pick, or the running game works one day and then the passing game doesn't at all. The running game has yet to complement the passing game on this season. Whenever Aaron Rodgers is like throwing touchdowns, it seems that Breece Hall is rushing for like 1 yard a carry.
Yeah.
And then
it's tough to see because people are starting to now give up on Breece Hall, and it's like I don't really think Breece Hall is the problem. If you look at the running lanes, actually I don't know which one. Yeah, I don't know what running lanes you're looking at because there are none. Even for Braylon Allen, who people are really high on, and I think he's been great. He's starting to get more touches than Breece Hall, but they're both pretty much putting up the same production.
Yeah, because the offensive line is just not there.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the most beatable that the Vikings have looked all season.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Darnold, he was like really off. He just was not playing that well.
Mm-hmm.
The stats kind of show that, but if you watch a film, he was airing balls like over people's heads. He was throwing them into the dirt. He was just making bad reads. It seemed like he was just kind of seeing ghosts. Like the Jets jerseys were bringing back bad memories, and he was like, who do I even throw to right now? I don't even know what's going on.
But with this, maybe that is just, and my Minnesota fans out there are going to be happy about this. Maybe that just shows how good the Vikings are. Is they don't need Sam Darnold to play perfect. They don't need Stephon Gilmore to play perfect. This should be reassuring that maybe the Vikings are actually a really good team. That because the really good teams don't need everything to be perfect for them to win. Look at the Chiefs.
Yeah. Or maybe it's because the Jets are in the worst performance because they can't even capitalize when everything's in their favor. But yeah,
there you go.
About the Jets.
Maybe
Jets are kind of on par with the Browns, just becoming a poverty franchise yet again.
Mm-hmm. Well, one team that I was worried about becoming a poverty franchise and actually showed out were the Cowboys in their win against the Steelers that I mentioned earlier in this pod. Dak Prescott to Jalen Tolbert on 4th and goal. I was very nervous in my girlfriend's apartment. I was very giddy after that little streak route underneath. So that was awesome. I'm going to give one of my best performances to Mike Zimmer, who I was very low on over these past couple weeks with how the Dallas defense has been playing. But even down Micah Parsons DeMarcus Lawrence. The secondary is what it is. We have to play in enemy territory. The game's delayed nearly 2 hours because of some weather. I think so. I looked at it before this. Steelers had a sub 200 total yards. Held Najee Harris and Justin Fields down pretty well in the run game. The secondary looked pretty solid. They gave up those 2 passing touchdowns, but overall were really solid. So I got to give it to Mike Zimmer, who I was very low on. I wanted him to, not be the defensive coordinator after this year. But it looks like he adjusted well, even with some of the Cowboys' best pieces being out this week.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that was a game that I actually had got the pleasure of watching the end of. Got off work around like 11, zoomed home, and yeah, it was still going on. I mean, to the late hours of the night.
Yeah, shout out Dak Prescott, who is now the only player in NFL history to throw 2 touchdowns in the same game on different days. So
wild stat.
Yeah, but I got to give it to Mike Zimmer now. I'm giving him his flowers, but they play the Lions this week. It's a lot tougher than this. It's a lot tougher than the Steelers. But if he can do the same thing against the Lions, then give that man a 10-year contract, I guess. But the jury's still out on him. It's like Halloween's coming up. You're getting
spooky.
Yeah, you're getting the fun size pack of M&Ms right now. You want to get the share size, do the same thing against the Lions.
Yeah, if that, whatever that means.
You're getting the little Twinkie right now. You want to get the king size? Beat the Lions.
Yeah. I think I was gonna.
Yeah.
Moving on. No. I think I was gonna say something else about this game, but I cannot remember. Maybe it was about Rico Dowdle actually being a good player.
He looked pretty solid. Offensive line for the most part did really well. So.
Did you see did you see the George Pickens?
Yes, I did.
After the game, the little snag the face mask down onto the ground.
Yeah, can we do something about that, guys? Come on now. I actually was going to shout out, I think it was Jordan Lewis who was covering him for most of the night. He did really well against George Pickens. Secondary overall did pretty decent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just thought that was funny just because, I mean, that's such a Steelers player thing to do. He probably got a high five in the locker room afterwards.
Yeah, and especially with George Pickens wearing the eye tape that says always fucking open. Well, not against Jordan Lewis, you weren't. And Jordan Lewis ain't even really that good, buddy.
Yeah, what did you do? 3 catches for 26 yards?
Yeah. Nope, not good. Anyways.
Speaking of that sound effect, I called it. Anybody who's been watching the podcast for multiple weeks now.
We knew this was coming. We knew it was coming at some point.
They heard my take on Andy Dalton. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, Bryce Young's the problem in Carolina. Andy Dalton is like a new man. The red rifle is back. He's slinging the ball like he was when he was 27. No. Come on, guys. It's the honeymoon phase. It's now over. I mean, Andy Dalton went back to the dumpster. This is kind of why I have a lot of quarterbacks this week. It seemed like the week of bad quarterbacks, but
I mean, there was I would say there's more good than bad, but the bad were pretty bad. Yeah. Andy Dalton, 18 for 28, 136 yards and an interception.
Yeah, and it wasn't necessarily his performance because, I mean, sure, that's a pretty bad stat line. But, I mean, you only put up 10 points against the Bears. And, I mean, the Bears have a good defense, don't get me wrong. But that you lost by 26. I mean, that's kind of...
Yeah,
that kind of in its own is like, you... It seemed like the Panthers are back. The Panthers we knew from the start of the year.
Yeah, the Panthers, they put up the one touchdown drive probably looks like maybe their opening. No, their second drive of the game was a touchdown. And then they were like, you know what? We're done scoring the rest of the game. They get outscored 36-3 the rest of the way.
It's like that. I think you should leave, but I'm done.
Nope. Yeah, I'm done.
Nope. You just want to keep scoring touchdowns. I'm done.
Yeah. So maybe it's more. Maybe it is a little bit more on the Panthers defense, even though we knew the Panthers defense is not great. But like, even though like, I don't know, like, are the Bears really that much better than the Raiders, who Andy Dalton tore apart on the road?
But not even that. I mean, you're down 27-7 at half. I mean, if you would even scored one more touchdown,
it's interesting.
Maybe 17-27 at half, you're still in that game.
Yeah.
But by the time you get to the third quarter, you've given up pretty much. It's like at some point you just gotta like score some points.
Yeah. So
field goal here and there.
You know, no one probably thought the Panthers were going to make the playoffs, even with Andy Dalton playing the way he was. But we've seen this song and dance too many times. Doesn't matter if it's Andy Dalton, if it's Mike White, if it's Josh Dobbs. They always come down to earth. There's a reason these guys aren't starters in the league.
Yeah, and I told everybody, but they didn't want to listen. They said Andy Dalton is back. I said, nope. At some point, there's a reason that you just said it. Yeah, there's the reason these guys are backups.
And
so we'll see. We'll see if Bryce Young comes back this year. Maybe he just needed a timeout. Maybe he's a little guy. Maybe they just put him in timeout.
He did play in this game. He played in this game. I want to say his final stat line, let's say 4 for 7 here, 58 yards, was sacked one time. So
58 yards. That's almost half of what Andy Dalton had.
Yeah, So, but a couple defenses that made, I'll just hit mine quick here. A couple defenses that made their opposing quarterbacks look like backups. One of them technically is now, but the Texans to Josh Allen and the Broncos, especially the Broncos secondary to the Raiders offense to Gardner Minshew. I'll hit on the Texans here real quick. They held Josh Allen to 9 completions. I mean, we haven't seen Josh Allen play like this since probably his rookie year, second year in the league. Shout out to their defense. Texans defense is legit, especially with, guys like Will Anderson, Derek Stingley. We kind of forget about them. But, Texans, their defense made that win look way better than I expected it was going to be.
9 for 30.
Yeah.
Hey, that's the Josh Allen that we come to know, 5-6 years ago?
Yeah, and I honestly, I'm not going to lie, like I didn't know the Texans defense was like that, but against Josh Allen, I mean, they cooked him up.
Yeah. I mean, who would have seen that coming?
Held them to 276 yards on the day, which honestly is pretty good, especially when you have guys like Josh Allen, James Cook, Keon Coleman, all those guys. But, really, Texans defense did a great job in holding. I mean, they were up 17-3 at halftime. So,
yeah, and good job holding them off too at the end. I mean, 17-3 at half, and
they
start giving up that comeback.
Yeah, they start to get something going a little bit. It's 17 or 20. They're up 20-17 going into the fourth quarter. It was tied 20-20, and then hold them off in the third quarter.
I want to see what Josh Allen's stat line was at half. I don't know if that would be possible to pull up, but
you'd probably find it somewhere. But
it would have had to look similar to like Bo Nix against the Jets, huh?
Yeah. So Texans came up clutch late in that game. Like I said, like we were talking about earlier, the Texans are going to be fine. They're still a fun team to watch. Bills, though, come on now. We were high on you guys. Let's not
fraud watch.
Yeah, are we on fraud watch here? Let me look at their next couple games here. The Bills have the Jets on Monday night, and then it's Titans, Seahawks, Dolphins. Those are all winnable games for you, Bills, but you got to have a statement win in there. And for Josh Allen, he'll regress back up to the mean. This is definitely an outlier, but I'm just saying, shout out to the Texans defense for making Josh Allen look like 2018, 2019 Josh Allen.
Making him look human.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then the Broncos.
Yeah, Broncos. So I wrote here, the Broncos secondary on my best performances, but mainly Pat Surtain, who gets that 100-yard pick six against Gardner Minshew, and banging on it. Ankeny man himself, Riley Moss. He went to Ankeny Centennial, the rival school, but still got to shout him out. A white cornerback getting an interception, a great interception, by the way.
First time since like 2005 or something. I think it's maybe 2010.
And even before that interception, he's been playing great. Like he's been locking some dudes down. He did go on a podcast and say, he could lock up like Justin Jefferson and he doesn't look at the names or whatever. Listen, shout out to your mentality, but let's be real here. But either way, the Broncos secondary looked awesome and pretty much got Gardner Minshew benched, which I know you wanted to hit on that as well with your worst performances.
Yeah. I mean, but before that, you mentioned Justin Jefferson. You mentioned Patrick Surtain. I'll mention Sauce Gardner. He did not clamp up Justin Jefferson.
Oh, no.
I think he had like what,
Darnold.
like 2 holding, maybe like a defensive pass interference. I mean, he was atrocious.
Which a lot of people have complained that he typically does hold and doesn't get called for it. But
and I think we're seeing Patrick Surtain take the number 1 spot for me.
Oh, yeah. I think if you ask a lot of people, he was probably already up there heading into this year, but he's been playing like it. And, that 100-yard pick six is, I feel like once he has the speed to get past the rest of the offense that's chasing after him. So it's not that it was an 100-yard pick six, like the number wise. It's really just that he's able to clamp up like that in the red zone and really just the Raiders, they got their win against the Ravens a couple weeks ago. That's awesome. But now they're regressing back to what we know as just not a great team.
Yeah. And I mean, Gardner Minshew, I have my last 2 quarterbacks on the worst performances. Wasn't necessarily because of their performances per se. I'll check. Gardner Minshew is not good, but
I got you here. Gardner Minshew. Minshew Mania. 12 for 17, 137 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks.
Not good.
Not great.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew and Jacoby Brissett. 2 players that got benched this week because of their performances. Maybe not for their performances this week. Maybe it was a culmination of everything. But still, if you get benched after week 5, you're going on the worst performance list.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that.
Yeah, so Jacoby Brissett, 18 for 34, 160 yards against a Dolphins defense, which really, come on. I feel like the Patriots probably could have won that game. The Dolphins won 15-10. It just felt like the Patriots have the better roster, maybe, or just you got to attack the Dolphins when they're down because since Tua's left, they have not looked good.
Yeah, and they didn't really do anything after the first quarter. They just they scored. It was similar to Andy Dalton. He was like, all right, I scored my touchdown for the day. Clocking out. It's like, no, you kind of have to do a little bit more than that. I feel like I'm just going to bounce back and forth between the two, but
we can move on to maybe previewing Thursday Night Football just real quick if you want. 2 teams that we didn't even really talk about so far this episode.
Oh yeah, 49ers Seahawks.
This will be a good one, I think. Amazon is starting to hit on these Thursday Night Football games. A little surprising considering their track run, but no, I'm looking forward to this one, and I think the Niners really need to pick up this win right now, where they're at in the season. They lose an a pretty winnable game against the Cardinals, and they lost a pretty winnable game against the Rams the week before too.
Yeah,
A very winnable game against the Rams.
yeah. I mean, both games came down to like the wire. I mean, it seems like that's the MO for the 49ers at this point.
Mm-hmm.
They're like a hair off, and it seems like if they were a fully healthy team, or even like like an 80% healthy team,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they pull out these wins. But they're rotating people in and out. They're trying to figure out like what to do here, like each week with what they have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're also trying to figure out their injury statuses with like, I mean, that's probably distracting them a bit. Like, all right, we got to send Christian McCaffrey to like Amsterdam or something,
Yeah.
just to he's dealing with some foot fungus or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whatever he's doing that week. I mean, it seems like, I mean, Brock Purdy's playing really well.
Mm-hmm.
The defense is playing all right, but they're just
Not
like
late.
not good enough together to pull out wins.
Yeah, they're and excuse me, they beat New England last week, and then the week before is when they lose to the Rams. But both those games, against the Rams and Cardinals, two very winnable, and that's the difference between staring at 4-1 than 2-3. And the
Yeah,
Seahawks have dropped two straight now. They lost to the Giants this past week, which who watched that game? But apparently Daniel Jones actually played really well. Um, Seahawks are kind of starting to cool off after starting 3-0, but I think big implications for this game. Like if the Niners get back to 3-3, a little bit more hope. But if the Seahawks drop to 3-3, maybe they even improve to 4-2. I mean, I'm really excited for this game. Probably going to cook up a parlay or two for this. So, but overall, if I had to make a pick, I'd probably pick the Niners. I think Purdy usually fares pretty well against the Seahawks. It is in Seattle, but again, I think they're at a crucial point right now where Kyle Shanahan is going to rally his troops together. I know the Seahawks have a good defense. This probably be a pretty close game, but I think the Niners pull out a win in this one.
yeah. I think this is a must-win for the Niners because
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to drop to 2-4. You have to pick up a win in division.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I don't really see them dropping this game per se. Like, I feel like this 49ers team is like good,
Mm-hmm.
right? The Seahawks team is kind of like I'm not sold yet on them. I
Mm-hmm.
gave them their 3 weeks. They were surprisingly decent, and then since then have just kind of fallen.
Yeah. Their defense has still looked pretty solid though, because their new head coach Mike McDonald, who was the defense coordinator at the Ravens. But other than that, I mean, the offense is kind of roller coaster right now. Is
Yeah,
Kenneth
Logan over
Walker?
here
Yeah, dude.
becoming a robot.
Yeah, is Kenneth Walker? It's kind of like Kenneth Walker has a good game, then he has a bad game. Geno Smith sitting with 5 touchdowns, 4 picks. So we'll see. I guess we're just gonna see what happens. But with the Niners, talk about this being a must-win game. Definitely would give them some much-needed momentum, as then they have to play the Chiefs, and then the Cowboys, and then the Buccaneers. 3 games where, all those teams very good so far, and going to be looking to make a statement against the defending NFC champions.
I mean, I wouldn't say that the Kenneth Walker did bad here. Okay, it's my guy. He had 7 catches for 57 yards.
In a loss.
He did better than DK.
Okay, well, just
And he's a
taking
running back.
we're just taking unnecessary shots at DK right now. That's not. Come on. But I mean, I think it'll be a good game though. But like you said, much needed from both sides.
Mm-hmm.
But I am looking for a statement game out of Purdy here, because you talk about him being good. I think he just hasn't really been bad. Probably last week was his worst game. He did have 2 picks, but kind of looking for that. Yeah, kind of looking for that statement game from him, I think people are starting to get kind of low on him.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the eye goes first. If you see a loss, you're like, well, it's got to be the quarterback's fault, and it's a lot of times it's not. But I mean, I think he's had games where he's thrown for like 350 and 3 touchdowns, and they lost. So it's like, at some point, you can't put the blame on him. You got to be like, okay, is the defense letting up too many points? Is the run game just not working well enough with Jordan Mason to, complement the passing game?
Right.
Is it too much to lean on Juwan Jennings each week to be like your pass catcher? I mean, there's just a lot of things that's going on with that team where, oh, I didn't even notice that Brandon Ayuk finally had a good week.
But, yeah, so we won't give him too much credit here.
Yeah, well, I mean, it just seems like nobody can perform on the same day, right? Like exactly. Brandon Ayuk is terrible the days that Deebo Samuel does well, or maybe Jordan Mason will pop off and then Brock Purdy throws 2 or 3 picks, and or the defense lets up 30 points when everything's working on the offense. It's like,
you got to think maybe with all the injuries that have been going on and the Christian McCaffrey injury, especially, like maybe that's just kind of getting with the team where it's like, it's just like mentally, maybe, I don't know. I don't know if anyone's ever really talked about that, but it's just kind of like, oh, well, like we have to win these. I mean, you should always want to win these games, obviously, but like it feels like you are almost like still trying to make up for the loss with Christian McCaffrey, and it's like, no, like we've seen you guys, like you can win games without him. But also just like the Vikings, the loss against the Vikings, that's just against probably one of the best defenses in the league, and the other 2 losses against the Rams and the Cardinals, that's just both sides needing to be good late, and they haven't been. So
yeah, so I mean, Thursday, tomorrow, we'll kind of show which team will, I guess, be playoff contenders, I assume, right?
Yeah, I mean, if
it's going to be tough to dig out from a 2-4 start for the 49ers.
Yep.
Probably be tough to dig out from 3-3 for the Seahawks if that division actually becomes competitive.
I would say that, like, if the Seahawks end up winning, then maybe I'll take them a little bit more seriously. That's how I'd put it.
Yeah, but if they started 3-0, and if they
might drop their 3 straight. Exactly. So
it's like, where does it end?
Maybe we'll give you guys another pod on Friday. Hopefully by then we'll get some more news on Devontae Adams, maybe some other ones that'll come up. But yeah, looking forward to the next time we see you guys. Thanks as always for tuning in, and we will see you guys then.